Hi Janice, it's me, Sasha. Um, I just wanted to apologize about last night, and I'm really thankful that you're being very empathetic and supportive. It's been a rough week. Um, I'm planning to go to a therapy session tomorrow through employee assistance, just because I'm having a hard time just sorting out a couple of things, and I really don't like things like this getting in the way of work and school and my other obligations. And I know that it is a process, but it's been really hard for me. I haven't grieved like this in about 5 or 6 years. So I just still wanted to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I'm going to do my presentation the best I can. I'm going to show you my slides on my PowerPoint and have it be kind of like a podcast. Okay? Now, my presentation, as you know, I switched in the middle of the semester, so finding some material um, proved to be a little challenging for me, but I was originally doing um, wastes on medications and how much that would cost certain departments when certain medications weren't accounted for certain patients. So for instance, if you had 20 colace in your Omnicell, your medication dispenser, and 15 patients used the colace, but there were still 3 missing, then the unit would pick up the tab. I really wanted to look into that, but nursing really didn't have a big part in it, so I was having a hard time finding journals associated with it. So another big problem on my floor is 30-day hospital readmissions. I work on a 31-bed intermediate care medical unit. We see a lot of ICU step down, a lot of patients fresh out of the emergency room. We board neuro patients, we board oncology patients, and we do board some surgical patients, but we tend to be strictly a medical floor. So I really wanted to look into this because we have patients that come in all the time, and the fact that they know me when I walk in the room is good because they know that we had an experience, but it's also bad because I feel like you're here so much, you know the staff, you know how the hospital works. No patient should know the hospital that well unless they've had an extremely long hospitalization. They shouldn't know it from coming into the hospital so many times that they know the ins and outs. It's not fair to them because they don't really have a life outside of this place, but it's also stressful for the caregivers because us as nurses and aides and physicians, we're feeling defeated because we feel like we didn't do right by you. So I just wanted to look into this and see what there were some certain possible solutions and to see what nursing can do, or if there's anything that nursing could do to contribute to decreasing the problem. So I'm going to turn off this bright light on the side. It's really a makeup mirror. Um, so my slide is 30-day hospital readmissions and nursing care. So why all the fuss? Well, all the fuss about readmissions is usually you hear the conversation saying that things are very costly. So other than that, for me, the top thing is increased morbidity. The more and more these patients come in, the more susceptible they are to acquiring nosocomial infections and having mismanaged care, getting bounced around to different medical facilities, not getting the care they need. They're experiencing caregiver role strain. So if there are people taking care of them at home, how are these people dealing? Are they worn out? Are they missing the mark? Did they miss the mark, and is that the contributing reason as to why they're in the hospital? Questions of mismanaged care. Like I said, a lot of times you'll hear caregivers feel like they're defeated, but really, it's not about our feelings. It's, are we taking care of this patient to the best of our ability? Did we provide them with all of the opportunities and all the supports that they deserved upon being a patient? the third bullet is questions of poor patient adherence. So a lot of times you'll see patients come in and you'll know they didn't follow directions, they didn't take their Colace, they didn't take their Coumadin, they didn't take the medications that they were supposed to. And is that a reason as to why they're in the hospital? Did they take all their oxycodone at the same time and now they're in respiratory depression? These are the things that we need to think about. And although it's very hard to change because you can't change a person's behavior, you also want to look to see what other things that can be done to help decrease this phenomenon as well. The next bullet is fiscal and insurance implications. So a lot of times you'll hear people pretty much pointing to hospitals and saying, if your patients are readmitted within 30 days, we don't have to reimburse you. We don't have to do this. You're definitely going to get flagged, and this is going to be public information. Of course, it looks bad, but at the end of the day, we're all doing a disservice to our patients. We want to provide care because we want to provide care and not provide care out of fear that we'll get dinged or penalized for readmissions. And then the last bullet is caregiver role strain, which I've already talked about in the past. So we're just going to move on to the next slide. So my PICO question, my revised PICO question is, for patients, does excellent nursing care reduce the occurrence of 30-day hospital readmissions compared with the managed care system we use today? And when I say managed care system we use today, I mean if there's not a nursing-centered care model, what is making these patients come back? Nurses do account for a huge experience in how the patient perceives their visit and how they're cared for, but there's also interdisciplinary roles that contribute to the patient's outcome and disposition. So, tools of the trade that I used to come to a conclusion about the study and to actually see if I can answer my PICO question were, I used 8 articles. There were a lot of articles that I found, but I got down to 8. I ended up using 6 total. My 2 outlier articles weren't the best. One was more of a guide in listing for reasons as to why patients are readmitted. And the last one focused on veterans and morbidity. And although it was very interesting, it really didn't relate to my PICO question and what I was really looking for. So I didn't want to really digress too far away from the subject. Randomized location. So all of the studies either occurred in small community facilities, huge hospital systems, all across the country, and I believe even one in Canada. So the information isn't regionalized and it's pretty much spread out. So knowing that, different patients are served in different hospitals in different regions in the country, experience different comorbidities, I thought it was really good that I was able to get information from studies that use different hospital systems across the country. Large sample sizes. A lot of these studies that I used were meta-analysis, so they did a lot of data review. So they were able to actually pull a lot of easily accessible information and generate studies using thousands of patients and hundreds of hospitals to create the best outcome. Well, not actually create, but really to see what the outcomes were of their proposed studies. Comparisons to Medicare-based tools and calculations. So on top of obtaining all this open information that the researchers could get through hospitals and billing, they were able to use a lot of Medicare-based tools that Medicare themselves would use to calculate reimbursements, readmissions, so that things were valid and that they were feasible. And it decreased the stress of researchers feeling like they had to make their own tools and having all these people use different tools, because at that point then the studies wouldn't really be as valid as they should be. So, expectations and reality. So, what I thought, in other fancy words, my hypothesis is that hospital readmissions closely related to nursing care, that there were too early discharge times and patient non-adherence. This is just my bird's eye view, my 2 cents as to what I thought were contributing to these 30-day readmissions. But through reviewing the literature, what I found out that is readmission rates were associated with patient stay and satisfaction, insurance quality, outpatient support, increased length of stay, increased duration of living comorbidities, and outpatient follow-up. And also, it was not always associated with direct nursing care and hospital performance, which a lot of times people will really talk about a lot in the media and in everyday conversations at facilities. So the implications, the next steps that I think that we as a profession need to take is that we need to be more accountable to our patients, rather than just saying, oh, you only have 3 allowed days in the hospital and 5 allowed days in rehab. What are we really providing the best care so that they can even be discharged a day early? What are we missing? Why are they staying in hospitals a long time? Why are they having such late discharges? What are we doing that is adding to the problem? We need better communication through the disciplines and as well as to other facilities and to the patients. We owe more to our patients. We need to communicate with them, and they need to be able to be comfortable to communicate to us about what their needs are and how they feel about going to to the next steps of care. The third one is, I think, the most important, which I found that most articles stress, was the need for better primary care physician ownership and outpatient care. Follow-up, home care, scheduled physician PCP visits after inpatient hospitalization really contributed to decreasing 30-day readmission rates. And the last one is the shift in the quality of care with Affordable Care Act, for better or for worse. A lot of people will still be skeptical about the Affordable Health Care Act. I had a friend stop by here yesterday that actually said that he was on the back end of receiving care where he would be denied care because he didn't have the insurance. And I said, what state do you live in? And when were you denied? And then I actually spoke to the Affordable Care Act, and I said that Massachusetts is ahead of the game. And if you've ever been denied for anything, then it must have been a long time ago. And at a point where I know that he didn't come from the best means, he actually qualified for Medicaid. So he had Mass Health. So him being denied certain things, I couldn't really stand on it, and I couldn't really validate his frustrations. And I also informed him that coming into the emergency room, if you don't have a primary care physician, they can't refuse your care because it's illegal. So I think a lot of people need more education around what healthcare provides for them and what rights that they have as a patient. These are my references that I've sent to you, and that's it. So I hope that will suffice. I'm trying to turn on this light again. And I really hope that looking over the literature, I'll be able to actually bring it to work. We actually are starting to look at readmission rates and what we can do as a unit to decrease them, because we'll have patients that come back 3 times in a month. What happened? What ball has dropped and who has dropped it? So instead of pointing fingers, our biggest goal is to really just come together and see what we can do so that this patient can have the best outcome possible. Thank you for your time, and I shall see you in school. Thank you.